Chill out, Furiosa. Your movie isn't doing that bad. Alright, good evening, guys. Jagger Newman for another Bladeslinger vlog. So, last week I posted a vlog on Furiosa Mad Max Saga, a film which I absolutely loved. I went to see it again this weekend, and it was just as good on a second view, and so many details I didn't see the first time. And I really don't have anything to add to it. It's just a great movie. If you haven't seen it, see it now. And a lot of people might be saying that I might be saying that because I wanted to encourage people to go see it in order to compensate for its poor box office performance. And that's something I've been seeing a lot lately. I've been hearing the same thing, seeing so many different news articles with the same headline: Furiosa bombing at the box office. And I have to say, that is not the case, guys. Furiosa is not bombing at the box office. In fact, it's actually doing pretty well, all things considered. I know it hasn't made back its budget yet, but there are several reasons for that. But if you compare it to how Fury Road did back in 2015, it's actually performing extremely well. When Fury Road, over its opening weekend, it only grossed about 24% of its overall budget, but it would eventually go on to make at least double its budget, so it would end up becoming a success. And Furiosa made 44% over its opening weekend, so it's done twice as well as Fury Road if we're going just by the opening weekend. But because I guess people just like a good headline, and because I feel like Furiosa is an easy target for media outlets, you've just been hearing a lot of people talking about how the film is bombing at the box office and how it's not making money, that the future of the Mad Max series is in question. And yeah, that's just not the case, guys. So I think that does beg the question then, why are people saying this? Why isn't Furiosa doing better than it is, despite how good it is? And do I think that it will eventually go on to be as successful as Fury Road? So, first of all, let me give you guys a little hit lesson on how movies generally get made. Typically you have a director or producer, they go to, an investor, typically a movie studio with deep pockets or other avenues, and they pitch them an idea for a movie, quote them on how much they think it'll take to make it, and then they get the money for it, and then they spend the next several years making the movie. And the investors put forth that money expecting to get it back with some profit. In order to make money, you have to, spend money. That's a basic rule of business. But as the film is being made, plenty of people are getting paid. So, like, special effects, writers, actors, they all make money off the movie regardless of if it's good or not. But the people who put the money into it definitely take the most risk, because even if you have the greatest concept for a movie ever and you get the best filmmakers in the world to put it together, there's no guarantee that's going to do well. So because of that, investors want to make as much money as possible very quickly. So they have a tendency to put a lot of stock in the opening weekend of a movie. Now, there are some movies that are going to make their money back within the first weekend. You put out a Star Wars movie, you put out an Avengers movie, or anything like that. It's basically guaranteed to make money. It's not always going to make back its budget within the first opening weekend, but odds are it's going to do extremely well. But the thing is, a Mad Max movie is not one of those movies. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Mad Max series, but you have to understand, this is not a film series that has broad appeal. Something like Star Wars, something like the Marvel movies, Indiana Jones, Avatar, those are films that have very broad appeal. The demographics of them are very wide. They appeal to younger children, teenagers, adults, older adults, and because of that, everyone goes to see those movies. Mad Max isn't one of those movies. This is a series that is a hard R-rated series that depicts a very dark, very violent, and at times disturbing depiction of the future. So this isn't a series that filmmakers are going to take their kids to go see. And like, if you are a parent and you took a kid to see Furiosa over the Memorial Day weekend, I hate to tell you this, but you're a terrible parent and you can quote me on that. But that's a big reason why Furiosa isn't doing as well as, other big blockbuster franchises. If you were to pitch Mad Max to a film studio, you would basically have to make it very clear that it's not going to make its money right out of the gate. And if I were a filmmaker, I would expect that. Because again, when Fury Road came out in 2015, it had even more working against it than Furiosa did. It had been, I think, 20 or 30 years, not 20 years. It had been a long time since the last Mad Max movie. And the film looked very different. Mel Gibson wasn't as Max anymore. In the trailers, it seemed like this new character, Furiosa, was getting more screen time than Max himself. So there was a lot of concern amongst people as to whether or not the film would do well. But when the film came out, it wasn't just good, it was damn good, dude. And again, while it only made 24% of its budget within its opening weekend, word spread fast at how good it was, and everyone went to see it. And it was so good, people went back to see it. I went to see Mad Max Fury Road twice while I was in theaters. Now, Furiosa has the benefits of, being a sequel to such a landmark film. So you would think it would do better, and again, it is. It has already done twice as good as Fury Road did in regards to its box office performance on its opening weekend. But still, people, for some reason, think that just because it is such a film that it's going to do as well as other movies. But again, not going to happen, not with this series, and you just kind of have to accept that. It also doesn't help that the marketing for this movie has just been abysmal. So I go to the movies a lot. Like, I go maybe 3 or 4 times a month, depending on what's coming out. So I see a lot of movie trailers. And in the past year, I don't think I saw one trailer for Furiosa at any of the movies I went to. Now, of course, I became aware of the film and got hyped for it because, it came across my YouTube feed. I'm subscribed to a lot of Mad Max pages. So there was no way I was going to miss it. But your general moviegoer probably was going to miss it as a result. So that's part of the reason the film isn't doing too well. But it also doesn't help that it's just kind of saddled with a terrible title, too. Furiosa, a Mad Max story, is just not a good title for something like this. Now, I understand why they felt the need to put that in there. It has been at least 9 years since Fury Road came out, so people have moved on from that film. So they may have felt that they needed to include Mad Max in there to, ensure people that this is a film in the series. But a Mad Max story just has an air of cheapness to it. It's kind of like now that I think about it, a lot of movies I can think of don't use that kind of subtitle for that exact reason. It honestly sounds like a direct-to-video movie or something like that. So that's definitely working against the film too. And I don't know why they felt the need to do that, because Furiosa was an extremely memorable character. There's a reason she was so well received. You remember her, so if you were to just call the film Furiosa or perhaps Imperator Furiosa and then just show the trailer in theaters, I guarantee people would have got hyped for it. You didn't need to clarify that it's an entry in the Mad Max series. People would have figured that out because they remember Furiosa. But I think the biggest reason that Furiosa didn't do so hot during its opening weekend. And this is going to sound very, very, very crazy to a lot of people. And that's going to be the fact that it had some very bizarre competition. So hear me out on this, guys. It came out Memorial Day weekend along with the Garfield movie. Now, I have not seen the Garfield movie. I have no interest in seeing the Garfield movie. As soon as I saw the trailer for this movie, heard that Chris Pratt was being Garfield, and heard him voice Garfield, I said to myself, that's probably going to be shit. And from what I understand, it wasn't very good. So, why do I think that this movie is cutting into Mad Max profits? Well, think about what Memorial Day weekend is. It's a longer than average weekend. The family is usually together, and a common thing families do together is go to the movies. So, if you're parents, a mother and father, what are you going to take your kids to see? The R-rated, hyper-violent Mad Max or the Garfield movie? You're probably going to take them to see the Garfield movie regardless of if the film is good or not. And rightfully so. And it also plays back into what I was talking about earlier with the demographics of the movie. Garfield is a character that has broad appeal. He's a character that has been around for a long time. So older audiences are going to recognize the character. People like me, people in their 30s, they still have a fondness for Garfield. So, like, even though they probably don't think the movie's going to be any good, there's still a chance they might go see it. And of course, it appeals to kids as well. So, yeah, that's a film that's probably going to do a lot better than Mad Max. And it did. It made back its budget within, its opening weekend. But you still can't call it a bona fide success, though. Typically, a film isn't considered a hit until it's made at least double its budget. But, yeah, people say that Furiosa should have done better because it was coming out Memorial Day weekend, but people just aren't going to go see that with their kids. And that's probably why this film did so much better than Mad Max, despite the fact that there's probably a clear gap in quality there. It might sound crazy, but that's typically what happens with this sort of thing. Alright, so I think the big question is then, do I think that Furiosa is going to end up being as successful as Fury Road in the long run as I do as it... crap. Do I think Furiosa is going to be as successful as Fury Road in the long run? And that's a tough one. I want to say yes, because, again, I really like this movie. I don't like it as much as Fury Road, but it was still so well made and appeals to me so much that I wanted to go see it again. And I actually plan on seeing it again. I plan on taking my brother to see it next weekend. But I also I'm also not really sure if it will do as well as Fury Road in the long run. There's always a chance that the film isn't going to do as well as we want it to. But at the same time, like, word of mouth is spreading. I'm starting to see more trailers for the movie, and more people are probably going to hear the buzz about it and go see it, just like what would happen with Fury Road. And a lot of people don't realize this, but just because a film doesn't do well in theaters doesn't necessarily mean that it's an unsuccessful picture. Like, people always talk about, like, despite the fact that Fury Road made twice its budget at the box office, that still ended up losing Warner Brothers money in the end. But you gotta remember, the revenue that comes in from a movie doesn't stop with the box office. You still have re-releases, you still have DVD releases, which are still a thing. Do not give me that crap about physical media not being a thing anymore. I still plan on buying Furiosa when it comes out on DVD. And you also have licenses for showing it on TV, putting it on streaming services. There's still plenty of money that's going to be made for Furiosa. So I think in the end, Warner Bros. Is going to turn a profit on it. They just have to understand that it's not going to come rapidly. Give this film a month, maybe two, and you'll start to see some returns on it. And within a year, you'll have made good money on it. This is not a film that you're going to see a quick turnaround on, and if you think you are, you probably shouldn't be working in the industry, bud. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter, guys. I'll see you next time.